Hello friends, I welcome you all. Today is the World No Tobacco Day and we are celebrating this event on behalf of Department of Preventive Oncology and Nehru Science Center. We are having this popular science lecture on tobacco hazards. Actually, we have been celebrating this entire month through various activities such as painting competition, elocution competition, quiz, online quiz, short film, and we have had a good participation and we are very happy with that. So to give you a little brief about the World No Tobacco Day, it is an annual awareness day taking place on the 31st May of every year. It was created in 1987 by member states of World Health Organization to raise awareness of the harms caused by tobacco products to people, public health, communities, and the environment. The harms of tobacco use are well established. Tobacco kills nearly 8 million people every year, and it also destroys our environments needed for health and well-being. Through cultivation, production, distribution, consumption, and post-consumer waste, tobacco harms our environment. It destroys our forests, uses our safe drinking water, and pollutes our air. And harmful impacts are continuing to grow, adding unnecessary pressure to our planet's already scarce resources and fragile ecosystems. This year's World No Tobacco Day theme is Tobacco, a threat to our environment. The campaign aims to raise awareness among the public about the negative environmental impacts of tobacco from cultivation, production, distribution, and waste. So with this, I invite Mr. Subhrata Chaudhary, who is the director of Nehru Science Center, to please speak a few words. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. On behalf of Nehru Science Center, I welcome you all to today's program, a popular series of popular lecture on the occasion of World No Tobacco Day. In fact, we know that it is the most menacing problem the humanity is ever facing, and keeping in view of that, Nehru Science Center for so many years has been doing these collaborative programs with Tata Memorial, and today also is one of the important days. Yesterday, they have done some programs for our employees, for our contractual staff. It became very effective. The way they present the case, the way they bring the reality behind this menace to the humanity is very important. Just before I hand over to my subsequent speaker, two things I would like to mention. As I have seen as an individual, that people got addicted to tobacco at two stages generally. One, during adolescence, when just to show off their heroism, they start taking tobacco. And I have seen some middle-aged people who were otherwise very without that habit, but they pick up because they were isolated. They feel very isolated. So these are two important things that which we need to see. And the peers, the family members, the society, the workplace, our colleagues have a lot of things to also play. How we can avoid, how we can tell people to come out of this habit. With all, I wish you all a very the best success for today's program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind, encouraging words. Now today we have four esteemed speakers who will be speaking on various aspects of related to tobacco control. Our first speaker is Dr. Subhita Patil. She is Associate Professor and Physician in the Department of Preventive Oncology Tata Memorial Center. It is also part of Center for Cancer Epidemiology, Tata Memorial Center, Mumbai. So, Madam will be speaking on tobacco use and its threat to life. So, over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Parishi. Can I start? Okay. So, I'll be talking on tobacco use and threat to life. These are my subtopics. Is the screen visible? Presentation.
No, presentation is not visible. I think they have to share the screen.
Yeah, just a minute.
Rajesh, I think you have to remove spotlight.
Share. Yes, same. Share.
Yeah, now make it full screen now.
Next. 7 in 10 tobacco farm workers are women and get affected by hazardous chemicals. 1 in 2 children is exposed to secondhand smoke. 1 person dies every 4.5 seconds. That is 13 people per minute from tobacco-related diseases. Let me tell you here, tobacco smoke contains more than 7,000 chemicals. Next. India is the second largest consumer and producer of tobacco, as shown in the bar diagram on the top corner. Nearly 267 million adults are users of tobacco. In India, over 10 lakh people die from tobacco use every year. About 3,500 people die per year. Next. Tobacco gained entry into the Royal Court of India as a barter commodity to trade Indian textile by Portuguese in 17th century. Further, in late 1990s, smokeless tobacco surpassed smoking. Let us see the proportion of people consuming it in India. This map, no, there is a trend, previous. Yeah. So this map of India shows trends in tobacco consumption. When we compare 3 maps for a smoking form of tobacco consumption, it has reduced over a period of time, while smokeless form of tobacco has increased, replacing the lighter color of the states by the darker color here. Next. So, as shown here in this map, a quarter of adult population in India use some form of tobacco. The National Family Health Survey, which is a large-scale multi-round survey conducted in a representative sample throughout India by Ministry of Government and Family Welfare via a nodal agency, recently conducted a survey showed that Mizoram has a higher number of men and women consuming any form of tobacco. While the Global Youth Tobacco Survey 4, conducted in 2019 among youth of 13 to 15 years of age group, showed 8.5% prevalence of tobacco use, and it is highest in Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. Now, at which age the tobacco usage is started in India? It was started at 11.5 years for cigarette, 10.5 years for the BD, and at 9.9 years for smokeless tobacco is generally started in India, entire India. According to WHO fact sheets, India, 15% of youth are using tobacco and 39% are exposed to second-hand smoke. The WHO fact sheets, that the World Health Organization fact sheets for India during 2016 and 17 mentions that tobacco kills 1 million people per year in India, and the most common way to kill it is because of the cardiovascular diseases, that is, tobacco affects badly on our heart and blood vessels. Various forms of tobacco used in India are smoking, as shown here in this picture: bidi, cigarette, cigar, chirut, dunti, chilam, hookah. While other forms, that is smokeless, which includes applied as well as the chewing forms, which is roasted form of tobacco, mashiri or mishri, tobacco paste. Other chewing forms such as betel, along with the betel nut tobacco is consumed or the supari, which is also a carcinogenic, with or without lime, betel leaf or pan masala, mawa, kheni, snus. In certain parts, tobacco water is used to gargle in the morning. These photos shown here we see them in our vicinity. Smoking or smokeless form of tobacco, they contain nicotine, which gets absorbed when it is in contact with our mucosa, nicotine is very highly addictive. Young people who use smokeless tobacco can become addicted to nicotine, and cigarette smokers in their life ahead. In India, khani or tobacco lime mixture is very commonly used. The largest tobacco producing states in India are shown here in the darker shade of green. Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh have the highest tobacco producer states. These crops does not need any supervision from any kind of animals, and that is why I put here pictures, because animals also doesn't eat them. There are various other current forms of tobacco, such as the heated tobacco products, e-cigarettes. E-cigarettes, they look like regular cigarettes, cigar or pipes. Some resemble paints, USB sticks, and others of everyday item. There are other larger devices such as tanks, mods, which do not resemble the tobacco products. E-cigarettes are battery-powered devices and can deliver nicotine along with the other flavoring agents. And they are available in many shapes and sizes. There are various determinants of starting the habit in students and adults, which are shown out here. All these can lead to high likelihood of using tobacco. This slide shows various chemicals which are found in a cigarette. They are those found in industrial solvents, insecticides, toilet cleaner, paint, rocket fuel, sewer gas, vinegar, batteries, and candle wax. Now, apart from that, many smokeless tobacco products, they contain cancer-causing chemicals, tobacco-specific nitrosamines, radioactive element, polonium-210, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and harmful chemicals such as arsenic, beryllium, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, lead, nickel, and mercury. Let me tell you here, as shown here in this graph, the mainstream smoke, side stream smoke, second-hand smoke, and the third-hand smoke, as well as the cigarette and BD butts they contain various chemicals, as shown here in this diagram. All of them, they are harmful for the health and are responsible for various risk factors of illnesses and diseases on the consumer as well as on our environment. Nicotine stimulates dopamine in brain, giving pleasurable feeling followed by the addiction, which means an extreme form of habit where the person has no control over the act, and it becomes the need of the body. Short-term effects of tobacco, they causes oxidative stress resulting in inflammation, infections, weak immunity, micronutrient deficiency, breathing difficulty, increased heart rate, alteration of the lipid profiles, and infertility. It damages the lung. So the smokers have risk of developing lung cancer 25 times for men. So 9 out of 10 lung cancer deaths are linked to smoking. Tobacco affects the heart and blood vessels, resulting in myocardial infarction, that is heart attack, atherosclerosis due to tar and chemicals in the cigarette. And there is a 30 to 40% risk of developing diabetes. The person is susceptible to illnesses and cancer. It results into a cancer of various organs. Poor oral hygiene, and the person suffers from fractures due to poor bone density, increases the risk of cataract, fungal nail infections, and premature aging. Tobacco consumption by the pregnant woman affects the fetus growth, and the growth gets hampered in terms of physical, mental, and overall growth. The child is at risk of developing birth defects, low birth weight, or child may die suddenly. On an average, smokers die 10 years earlier than the non-smokers. Smoking leads to diseases and disability and harms nearly every organ of the body. With smokeless tobacco, which is a gateway drug, it increases the risk of coronary heart disease, that is a heart attack, stroke, that is a paralysis of various limbs, can again result into poor oral hygiene, cavities, gingivitis, oral precancerous lesion, which is observed in terms of white and red patches, difficulty in opening of the mouth, which is called as submucous fibrosis, ulcer, and growth over a period of time. Then there are certain reproductive and developmental risks during pregnancy. There can be early delivery and stillbirth, and the baby's brain development before birth gets affected. There can be anemia. Along with that, the spitting increases the spreading of infectious diseases such as COVID. So thus, there is no form of smokeless tobacco which is a safe substitute for smoking. E-cigarettes or vaping impairs the normal functioning of the blood vessels, and it disrupts the air sacs, weak immune responses to infection. Nicotine targets the whole body, brain, lungs, heart, and stomach. E-cigarette users, they breathe from the device and they exhale potentially harmful substances deep into their lungs, and the chemicals are linked to a serious lung diseases. It includes the cancer-causing chemicals as well as the heavy metals. It also contains nicotine and addictive agents. So all of them, they are toxic to the developing fetus and harms the brain development, and they are dangerous for the pregnant women and their babies. It also is responsible for the unintended injuries. So tobacco is the second leading risk factor for majority of diseases, risk factor for 6 of the 8 leading causes of death in the world, and risk factor for cardiovascular diseases, cancer, COPD, and other non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases, they have the same risk factors as that of the other tobacco-related illnesses. So tobacco consumption is responsible for non-communicable diseases. Smoking causes almost 9 of every 10 cases of lung cancer, and it causes cancer of other organs which are listed here. As tobacco smoke has 70 chemicals, and they damage DNA, which results in mutations in multiple genes, resulting into unusual cell growth or cancer. Tobacco consumption along with alcohol consumption has multiplicative effect on the body. Secondhand smoke, tobacco smoke is the mainstream, and the side stream smoke has high concentration of cancer causing agents, and the risk of diseases for non-smokers from secondhand smoke is similar to the smokers. Now, this slide shows the effect of secondhand smoke on children and adults. Third-hand smoke is the long-lasting residue resulting from secondhand smoke that accumulates in the dust, in the objects, and on surfaces in the indoor environments where tobacco has been smoked. Compounds that are found in the third-hand smoke include many of those that are found on in the second-hand smoke, which are highly mutagenic and carcinogenic. They are present even after the tobacco smoke has been put off, and all of that is detrimental to the health, especially on the children and the infants. So there is no risk-free level for second-hand smoke. Green tobacco sickness is the dermal absorption of nicotine from the surface of wet tobacco plants among those who are involved in the tobacco cultivation. The individuals who consume this, they faces poverty, medical expenditure on illnesses, green tobacco sickness syndrome, extensive use of pesticides on tobacco crop, and exploitation of cheap child labor is in this unorganized sector makes tobacco as multi-pronged issue. To conclude, tobacco affects every organ of the body, irrespective of the form, quantity, whether active or passive, and hence we need to eliminate tobacco use from our lives. Thank you. Thank you, Parishit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patil, for giving us such an comprehensive overview of the hazards, various hazards of tobacco on human health. We now move forward to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Shivam Kapoor. His technical advisor at STOP, the Union Southeast Asia office. His focus areas include monitoring the tobacco industry in India,
Uh, am I audible, Dr. Subhita?
Just bear with us, please.
Sir, you are audible.
Sure. Please let me know. I think there's some issue with your audio. Please let me know when to begin.
So, Dr. Shivam specializes in operational research and has particular interest in ends and cessation related issues. And he has also previously worked as technical advisor, monitoring and evaluation. He has been involved in strengthening the National Tobacco Control Program in India and is research coordinator at the Union. So I invite Dr. Shivam Kapoor. He will be speaking on environmental effects of tobacco. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for this warm introduction. I think with your presentation, our participants are already briefed about the health burden and what are the other major effects from this epidemic that we are facing today. I hope my slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think very warm good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'll simply jump to my topic, which is given today. So the environment effect, I think, of tobacco, I would like to start with this picture where there's an analogy between the lung and the tree, because the air we breathe in is what trees breathe out. So I think just to begin this topic, that we are nature, and let's not forget keeping tobacco in mind, where do we stand today? So I think taking ahead what Dr. Subhita already spoke, the burden is immense. Yes, we are aware of the health burden due to major products of a variety of products which are available in the world today. But when we speak about burden as such, I think there are few costs that are involved in this burden. So not just forgetting the direct cost, there are some indirect costs also which are amounted due to this epidemic. And these are where I'll be highlighting and focusing in my slides today, that is on environment. So I think when we start looking at the life cycle of tobacco, from cultivation to being a consumer waste, every step of it, if you look at, is where it gives back to the environment. So I think this illustration just gives you the know-how, starting from when the tobacco leaf is grown, when it is cured in a variety of forms, the cutting of the forest happens. Finally, when the tobacco products are manufactured, I think ma'am already enlisted few varieties which exist in India. In that process, there are greenhouse gases that are emitted to the product being launched in the market, when it is supplied and transported in various cartons and communicated to entire states, cities and districts in India, to the point when it is actually provided to the consumer, that is the end user who will actually consume, be it a cigarette, smoked, BD smoked, or a smokeless tobacco chewed. What are the end products, what are the waste products, and how they are distributed, how do they actually contribute to a significant burden in the environment. So this is again a simple picture, as I was talking about, the entire life cycle of any tobacco product, from its from its forming to its curing to its manufacturing, commercialized packaging, and finally the end user consumption and disposal back to the nature. So every step becomes very important when we see this threat of tobacco being to the environment. The major tobacco products that damage the environment are found during cultivation as the residues leading to deforestation, while pesticides polluting the waterways and poisoning the fishes when these chemicals are released. During the curing process, when firewood, wood, forests are burnt, it leads to severe deforestation and ultimately water scarcity, because the water cycle is also imbalanced. The process of processing and manufacturing these tobacco products in turn causes so much toxic emission which is released in the environment. Ultimately, these are certain greenhouse gases also. Finally, when the tobacco is used, I think ma'am already spoke about the smoke that is generated, the second-hand smoke which is there, that will advertently affect the health also to those who are not actually using it. And finally, the disposal of the tobacco product waste which is generated, are they actually going to the as a litter to the sand fills, or actually they are become the part of water resources, contributing to marine pollution. So I think when we start with this tobacco products per se, I think first let's categorize the products. So starting with cigarettes, there are major parts in the cigarette that are actually contributing to tobacco product waste. So what we call is TPWs in short form. So the end of the cigarette, which is cigarette butt, that contributes a major waste product. Then there is the foil paper under which comes under the cigarette packaging, and the packet of the cigarette, which is actually made of paper. Sometimes there is plastic mix, and it is surrounded by cellophane wrapper, which is again a major plastic component. Now, when we see at the packaging of BD might contain a butt which is discarded in the end. It can be having a packaging of both plastic or paper. Similarly, when we look at the packaging of smokeless tobacco, I've not displayed here, it can have the wrapping paper of a wrapping paper which is made entirely of paper or plastic or a mixed component. I think when we talk about cellophane, a word on cellophane here, because a very interesting, evidence which I found while I was coming across the historic importance of it. So I think a very significant part of plastic industry, how it was majorly favored by tobacco industry was when the big tobacco saw a rise favoring packaging in the form of plastic. Initially, because the tobacco products, cigarettes and cigars were entirely packed in foils, but when they found out the use of cellophane, they found out they had this argument that it preserves the aromas which are used in cigarette or cigar product. So the first ever cigarette that was marketed and glamorized was the Camel cigarette. It was the first product that you can see this humidor packaging that was launched, and it was actually promoted a lot by Hollywood stars. A film star like Jean Harlow had actually commented that she will always reach out to this kind of cigarette because that has a cellophane packaging. Similarly, if you see this news piece which has been taken from the Arkansas newspaper, cellophane industry was so much marketed and favored by tobacco industry that while they wanted to have the tax revenue stamp put on the paper, it was opposed by the revenue tax department of Arkansas. But later on, cellophane industry had the big win because it was supported by tobacco industry, saying that we need to have that kind of product that can preserve our products for longer time, and it will cause us major losses. So I think this is a very clear-cut example how such kind of waste products are actually promoted by the industry as well. So historically, I think we have this kind of evidence, and we'll talk about where do we stand now and what kind of strategies industry use when it comes to threatening our environment. If we see the global impact that is caused now, what we see due to these products, the major product, if we talk about globally, is cigarette. In India, it is a smokeless tobacco and BD, but globally overall, the estimates which are found are because of cigarettes, talk about that estimated discarded waste is nearly 340 to 680 kilograms from cigarette consumption. And the other packaging waste are separate, the paper which is used, the glue which is used, the foil which is used, and the cartons which is used. So if we see the annual manufacture of cigarette, which is around 6 trillion, so that contributes to nearly that nearly contributes to around 300 billion packages which are needed. If we talk about a pack of cigarette which is containing 20 cigarettes in one pack. And if we also calculate the number of matchsticks which are required for 6 trillion cigarettes, supposing that one matchstick can light 2 cigarettes at a time, so we need nearly 3 trillion matchsticks, and for that we need around 9 million trees to be destructed just to produce those kind of matchsticks. So you see what kind of burden is contributed now. So talking about the global environment footprint that is contributed by this 6 trillion cigarette. So if we see globally, some 32 million tons of tobacco leaves are used to produce actually this amount of 6 trillion cigarettes. And this is the data from across 125 countries. So this amount of leaf, when it is generated, in the process, some of the toxic elements such as fertilizers, pesticides will seep into water, ultimately causing harm to the water cycle. And ultimately, if we see what these emissions from this kind of burden will contribute to, with an annual greenhouse gas contribution of nearly 84 megaton of carbon dioxide equivalent. So, this is what goes into our air. And when we calculate the same for amount of wastewater, it contributes to nearly 55 million tons. If we see how much land is actually utilized when we are just talking about tobacco cultivation, so the figures are nearly 5.3 million hectares. So these are entire facts which are there only for cigarette production. So talk about the other products, these figures will be really glaring. So I think this again I have taken from the recent WHO Threat to Our Environment website. So talk about how many trees are chopped off and how much is the emission. Other significant component is from cigarette butt that is actually discarded after smoking by the user is a cellulose acetate. So being a non-biodegradable product, it is contributing a significant hazard to the environment, nearly the weight of around 1,75,200 tons. Now, if we see the other chemicals, I think which ma'am already enlisted, that cigarette has around 7,000 chemicals. So these chemicals are going to actually be contributing to water. And these can be in the form of ammonia, nicotine, hydrochloric acid, methanol. These are ultimately discarded if there is no protocol which is followed, and ultimately affecting the marine flora and fauna. If we see where does India stand in all of this? So these figures which I've taken are from a news editorial. So talking about a city like Bengaluru, it suffers from a burden of around nearly 31 lakh cigarette butts which are discarded, littered every day in various streets of the city. But the national figures, I think I won't be disclosing the entire topic here. So the union had done a study with our state partners, and along with other significant researchers. So what we found out was that the major waste which is contributed is from smokeless tobacco, that is around 68%. So what we did was that we took few samples of each of smokeless tobacco, BD, and cigarette products, and we found out how much significant form of waste is produced from this product. So these facts will be launched later on, and I won't be going in the details of these at the moment. But what we know now is that 4 major forms of waste are there. That is from plastic, paper, foil, and filter. And the most significant product is smokeless tobacco. Now, coming to the question, when such a huge, immense population we have in India, and a major source of transport which remains is a railway. So just figure that is there, which is highly glaring, and I think we all have witnessed from our eyes, is Indian Railways. So a lot of us have already succumbed to the fact that how much destruction has been caused just in the stations, in the train compartments. So if you see the figures of 2016 and 17, the actual number of spitting and littering cases that were reported were nearly double as compared to the previous figure. And again, these figures might be under reporting also. So just few I think environment, other disasters, which I think in India we are aware of. Now, when we talk about how much Indian Railway are actually spending each year, so nearly the figure is around 1,200 crores. And what government or what Indian Railways are doing about it? One simple example I think I would like to quote here is the provision of vending machine or kiosks that are now provided in some stations within nearly 42 stations. It's available, which are actually environmental friendly pouches or tumblers that are available, and I think the person can spit in it. So this is very effective measure which has been taken, so which I think we should keep in mind. I think now just a word on World No Tobacco Day 2022 theme, which is on tobacco being threat to our environment. So the campaign that WHO has initiated focuses on the entire process of cultivation, production, distribution, and finally the waste generation at the end by the tobacco products. Simply giving the tobacco users one extra reason to quit, that is to save your environment. I think some infographics which are available online, I think I would like our young audience to go back and read these material, that how this environment is actually harmed by industry, but they actually make it a point to use different kind of tactics, clever tactics, to make their image very environment friendly. So there are various examples that are there, broadly speaking about them, by making a green image, by doing a lot of sponsorship to the government, to the common people, and saving their face by becoming their friend, which actually they are not. So a very common term which is now being used, I think you all can go back and read these material, I'll be sharing few links for you, is greenwashing. So greenwashing is nothing but tobacco industry being very friendly towards us, by being socially responsible, by doing a lot of donations, whereas actually hiding the real truth behind them, which is contributing so much of waste and toxic substance to the environment. So I think the recommendation that few recommendations I'd like to make here is there are a variety of tobacco products that are there in the world that are available. So what we need now is a significant policy deterrent and a financial levy that should be borne by the manufacturers. When we talk about tobacco companies, the entire industry, I think the entire supply chain should be taking that onus on themselves, that they are responsible for contributing so much burden to the environment, and they should follow certain environmental laws. Also, the irreversible impact of tobacco product waste, majorly plastic, on the environment needs stronger policy implementation. And I think we as common public, common man should be aware of the various measures that tobacco industry go down to, and we should not be blinded by them. So a few relevant materials, I think you can go back and see. I'll be sharing their links in the chat also, which are facts available. I think all our young friends can use in their social media handles also. So just to summarize, tobacco is not just threat to our health or economy, but also to the environment. And I think the question which we should ask now is that ye aag kab bujhegi really? So I'll be closing my slide here now. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shivam Kapoor. That was an excellent presentation on environmental effects of tobacco. And these are the facts which are not actually known by everyone. So thank you so much for sparing your valuable time and this valuable information. Participants, if you have questions, you can please put it in the chat box, and our speakers can reply to them. And in fact, we are happy. We are receiving a lot of comments that people are liking this the lectures, and we appreciate your positive reinforcement to us. Thank you so much. And if there are no questions, I don't think there are questions for sir. So there are comments which we are receiving, and we are happy with that. Thank you so much. So thank you once again, Dr. Shivam Kapoor. for your valuable information. Thanks a lot. So with this, we now move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Pranay Lal. He is a senior technical advisor, the International Union Against Tuberculosis and Lung Disease since 2007 and has been involved in tobacco control efforts since the year 2002. So prior to joining the union, he has worked towards designing effective preventive HIV vaccines with the International AIDS Vaccines Initiative in New Delhi. So sir will be speaking on the tobacco industry interference, which is again a very interesting topic. So Mr. Pranay Lal, sir, can you please join, please take over.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Dr. Patil and Nehru Science Center. I must say that as a Mumbaikar, I benefited a lot from the Nehru Science Center and also have had the pleasure of being in Tata Memorial Hospital in early 90s. So just something that brings me back to Bombay, and you know, it's a walk down the nostalgia street. I'm just seeking permission to share my screen, if that is allowed. Yeah, I'm trying.
I think it is already there, sir.
Yes.
We can see your screen.
Okay, great. Is this visible now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to take forward the conversation between what Shivam has spoken about. It's the role of how the industry has been trying to look good in the environmental space. And it appears to be a corporate, good corporate citizen, and it seeks all these awards and likes to give these rewards to civil society and media and general citizens. Well, nothing can be far from true, because tobacco industry is perhaps the dirtiest industry. And I'll give you examples as we go along how dirty the industry is. So let me just start by saying that the tobacco industry basically is the template from which all industry learn from, whether it is pesticides, food, chemicals, defense industry, even the corrupt industries and underground industry has tried to use the models and the methods that the tobacco industry has created over the last 100 years. Now, there are 5 clear ways in which they manipulate. I'll give you examples of that as well. Now, the first way is to suppress and dilute facts. Now, let me give you an example of this. The first thing that tobacco companies said when the pack warnings were coming into force. Now, I think most of you know what the tobacco packet looks like. It has a very gory picture of a person with a cancer around his mouth or the cheek. So what the tobacco industry said was that cancer that occurs in tobacco has only been proven in the West, and Indian tobacco does not cause cancer. There are no studies in India or from India that show that tobacco causes cancer. And they keep repeating this, please show us the studies. There are no studies in India. So they try to deflect and suppress and dilute facts when it is amply clear that tobacco causes cancer. And Tata Memorial Hospital itself has produced a huge amount of research on how much tobacco related cancers occur in the country. So that's one example how tobacco companies lie to the parliament, to the courts and everybody. The second thing they do is they distract policymakers with other issues. Again, let me give you an example. In early 2000, when the tobacco control law was being adopted, the tobacco industry told the parliament and the health ministry that we have a bigger problem in HIV, AIDS and malaria. Let us support you with that. And as a result, ITC became the single largest distributor of condoms, right? And using that, their network in rural India, in terms of how quickly they are able to sell their cigarettes or distribute their cigarettes, they were also able to distribute condoms for the government. And that became a rallying point for the industry. They started telling the government that we are good citizens, we are helping you fight HIV AIDS in India, and we are going to do other activities along with that to support the government in fighting HIV AIDS. So please do not focus on tobacco control. Tobacco brings you lots of revenue and lots of other things, employment and other benefits. So focus on a disease that is actually going to cause havoc in India. Now, let's come to the third point. Now, they try to manipulate policymakers and local decision makers, and they try using front groups. Now, front groups basically means people who are engaged directly or indirectly with the tobacco industry, right? Now, what this means is that tobacco industry is using vendors and BD rollers and middlemen and PR agencies, all those kind of people, universities and fake scientists and people like them, environmental groups. Even today, when the theme is tobacco a threat to the environment, tobacco companies have done their own programs across India and said that how good they are. We are not a threat to the environment. They're saying we are planting trees and we are digging wells and we are saving water and all of those things. They are not telling you how much they use and how much forest they burn and how much other damage they do to the environment. That they are not showing. They are only showing you if they are planting 10,000 trees. That is what they will like to show you, and the community believes them. So they try to manipulate policymakers by doing what Shivam has just called greenwashing, right? Now, coming from point 2, they also like to conceal what is relevant. They will not tell you how many cancer patients happen or TB patients, TB cases occur in India because of smoking or tobacco chewing or spitting, how much extra cases would have happened because spitting is induced by smokeless tobacco, right? And the most important thing that tobacco industry has is money. Now, if you look at tobacco industry, largely any tobacco industry, whether it's BD, whether it's cigarette, whether it's smokeless tobacco, they have lots of money, lots of undeclared money. As Mumbaikars, that Dawood Ibrahim made a lot of his money from pan masala and gutka. If you were to do research over the last few months, some of the largest raids that have happened are on pan masala gutka makers in Uttar Pradesh, in Maharashtra, and many other states. In excess of 100 crores are found in smokeless tobacco companies. Also, the richest FMCG company in India is ITC. ITC can buy BSNL, MTNL, Oil India many times over. That's the amount of cash reserve it has. Most companies in India are working on a very fluid state of cash to debt ratio. ITC actually is so cash rich that it is no matter what happens to the stock exchange, ITC shares are always afloat. And because of this, they are able to buy media space. Look at this. You see Vimal Gutka ad being done by the 3 or 4 biggest Bollywood stars. How does a Gutka company, which is such a small Gutka company, Vimal, has got such huge amount of money to hire 3 or 4 of the biggest Bollywood stars? And the same is true for many other Gutka, pan masala companies, smokeless tobacco companies, also actresses, and even cigarette companies continue to use a lot of media personalities and entertainers. In particular, in COVID times, tobacco industry also showed a lot of violations, and I'll show you how they were disregarding the prohibition on smokeless tobacco and spitting and tobacco use. They violated that many times over. Just want to bring this to your notice that all the tobacco you consume in India today, right? If you were to group that together, we don't know what that size is because the government of India does not know the size of the tobacco industry, because there's pan masala, gutka, supari, khajur, gudaku, zarda, bidi. There's so many of these unorganized companies. But if you were to only look at cigarette and tobacco leaf, that is cigarette tobacco leaf sector, and you were to add just the profits and the revenues of these companies, that they would be the 22nd biggest revenue earner in terms of countries. It would be very, very high. Okay. I've just shown you that it is just shy of Switzerland and bigger than Sweden. That's the amount of GDP that tobacco industry cigarette industry has. Now, if I add bidi to it and smokeless tobacco and bidi tobacco, tendu patta, all those other things, it will be even larger. And of course, there are other countries like Indonesia where you have kretek, and there are other countries which have other forms of domestic tobacco use. If you add that, perhaps this would go to between 10 and 15, the rank of 10 and 15. So that's how big the tobacco industry is. But where does the money go? All the money goes to 2 or 3 countries. Even from India, the money from ITC, 25% of it goes to England. And even Godfrey Phillips, which makes Marlboro, which has a factory in Chakala, as many of you may know, for all my Mumbai friends, they would know this. All the money goes to America. Even our bidi and gutka and pan masala makers are taking the money to Mauritius and British Virgin Island and Cayman Island. It is a known fact that all the money that you see just now is only a tip of the iceberg. The larger amount of the cash is going outside through Hawala. There are several reports. There are lots of questions in the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. I encourage you to have a look at it. If you want to see a summary of it, there is a report that was done by React, a group called React. I can put the link later on the chat. And it shows how much tax...
Recording in progress.
How much tax they violate, how much they will not show, and the harm to the country is done by the...
Recording stopped.
And they try to stop giving any tax and any revenues that are actually due to the government. And because there is no revenue gain, there is a huge public health loss also. So the government loses on 2 counts. 1, they don't get revenue, and 2, they have to face the huge health burden, which Dr. Patli was sharing about. Now, we know that the tobacco industry will try reaching out to youth to get it addicted. Now, let me also say this to you. If you look at all the tobacco industry CEOs or the top management, they don't take tobacco products. The one that they make, they will not take tobacco. They want youngsters from our families to use tobacco. Okay. They make their tobacco products attractive. They come out with very nice advertisements, and they place the product in a very prominent place in shops and tobacco points of sales. They have, as you've seen, large hoardings. You've seen Bollywood actors promoting it. They also reach out to champions within campuses. So if there are a couple of youth who are seen as peers who are champion peers, then they try reaching out to them and say, will you sell Marlboro to your peer group? That's also something that they do. If you look at Facebook, you will find that quite easily. Then, of course, like I said, youth icons are created. I mean, think about it. Do you think Shah Rukh Khan and Ajay Devgan and Saif Ali Khan and Amitabh Bachchan are giving Vimal Gutka or Pan Masala to their children? Certainly not. They will also not take it, but they want you to have it, right? And the whole experience of selling tobacco is based on the risky behavior of adolescents. That means at the time when they're rebelling about the growing up phase with their families and their parents and the larger community, that's the time when tobacco industry reaches out to them and say, this is part of growing up, experimenting with tobacco. Try it. If you like it, continue. Do not like it, leave it. And this is traditional. Our heroes and heroines is to take tobacco, and makes you look so cool. And you should experience everything. So these are the messages that the tobacco industry wants to send to the youth of India, not just India, but globally. Now, what they have trying to tell the people and the policymakers is that our products are normal. So for example, we want to, if you say that, if tobacco is so bad, why don't you ban it? But they say we are a legal product. There are tobacco farmers who have been growing it for 100 years, and there are tobacco bidi rollers, and there are vendors, and there are packers, and there are people who are into the transportation. There are people who sell the product. So there's an entire supply chain, and all of them will, lose their livelihood. They will be pushed into poverty. All those kind of things are shared with the parliamentarians, the policymakers, the influencers. All of them gang up and say, we are a legal industry. We are protected by an act of the parliament. All those things are brought forward. And there are range of litigations that they present. The other thing they do is they hire public relations to look normal and use media. They support civil society, in particular education, health, environment, all those things. They try to show that we are supporting very good things which are useful for society. What they also do is they reduce the effect of tobacco control by influencing politicians and administrations and try to weaken tobacco control law and implementation. For example, if tobacco is being sold in near a school and the school belongs to, say, a municipal corporation, there will be an immediate phone from the education department saying, please do not take action against that vendor. Please do not take action against the market association. All those things will happen. Now, even if the headmaster or the principal wants to protect his or her children, there is a problem, right? So that kind of influence, the dirty influence that you see in politics, is very applicable on a daily basis it's done by the tobacco industry, right? Now, let me give you an example. Now, Dharampal Satyapal, this thing that green logo, which you can see, which is written as DS. Now, this is a leading NGO called Akshay Patra. You can see Swamiji, whose photo is there. There's a logo of Government of India. But Government of India says you should not participate with tobacco industry. And it also encourages by law and actually deters through the law, saying that you cannot participate with tobacco industry. Then how is it that Swamiji, who's such a learned man, who runs a group like Akshay Patra, which is a multi-million-dollar NGO, they don't need money from tobacco industry. They can very well say, we don't want your money. This is dirty money. Your product kills. But yet they take it. That is the influence of the tobacco industry. They try to look good. They partner with government. They partner with Swamiji and their organization. So this is just one example. A leading NGO called Akshay Patra, which started with school-based programs, right? They started to do looking at how schools need to be given midday meals. And they've become a very, very large international charity. But they also participate with the dirtiest companies, like the tobacco company, like Dharampal Satyapal, right? Now look at this, a very reputed media house called NDTV. Now this is the law minister of the time, Mr. Kapil Sibal, who's standing alongside a reputed Indian actress. They are doing a program for the bravehearts of India, the Indian soldiers. But this is supported by Godfrey Phillips, which used to do a award for common people called Godfrey Phillips Red and White Bravery Award. And they are able to get a learned lawyer and the law minister of the time, Mr. Kapil Sibal, who very well knows the law, and yet he will break the law, right? And I'm sure this actress, who's also a very well-read person, also knows that this is against the law, or at least it's unethical, but yet they're promoting the brand, the company logo and everything here to say that Godfrey Phillips and NDTV and the government of India and Bollywood support tobacco use, promote smoking, all of that. Yeah, this is the impression that the youth of India get. Look at this, Shuddh Plus, which was not even in the top 20 pan masala companies in 2012-13, but they were able to buy a team, right? They are able to sponsor IPL programs and games, and also Pan Bahar, which is owned by Pan Vilas, which is owned by Godfrey Phillips. Again, the same company, same madam that you see, Neeta Kapoor, who is the vice president of Godfrey Phillips, who is one of the key people who denies that tobacco does not cause cancer and all those kind of things. So these are the very famous people who will tell you that tobacco is good, please smoke. But she herself doesn't smoke. She does not let her children smoke. It's a very good convenient thing. They want, like I said, they want our children to smoke, our family members to smoke and chew tobacco, but they themselves will not chew tobacco, pan masala, or smoke. Now, in environmental efforts, ITC got the award from the then UN official Helen Clark as being the greenest company. But when we questioned what is this, why, how can you give a green award to a company that cuts trees to make its products and the product itself kills? And then the award was already given. So the United Nations also can make this mistake. Our battle is not just the industry or the government, but also keeping an eye on the behavior of organizations like United Nations or even an honest politician. So those are the kind of problems that we face, that tobacco industry is able to infiltrate and manipulate and brainwash to all the highest level policymakers and get awards and incentives and tax breaks and all the things that should actually be going to public serving enterprises. It actually goes to these kind of crooked corporate people. Now, I just want to show you how a small company based out of Udaipur has been able to diversify into so many things. It's got a diverse, it started with tobacco, it started with raw tobacco, it did many other lime mixed tobacco products, and it also made a lot of money from tobacco sale. It hired a current MP and former actress who is now selling their soap. It is also something that has diversified into not only properties, they also have malls, they also have a music label, they have studios, but they also sell parathas in Canada. Okay. And wherever cricket is played, you will find Bollywood, and behind the Bollywood and cricket, there is dirty tobacco money. Okay. So the link of dirty money goes into everything that is dirty. Politics, Bollywood, cricket, it's all touched by the same people. Yeah. Now, just to give you an example, in 2012, when the government finally banned gutka, and that was because you can't mix pan masala, which is a food product, with tobacco, which was against the government's own law. So for 30 years, people were selling gutka, which was an illegal product. When it finally got banned, the Smokeless Tobacco Association came out of nowhere. It was not even a registered organization. They started a blog. They didn't even have the time to start a website. But they came up with front page advertisements in Times of India and Indian Express and Jan Satta and Navbharat Times and all the big papers of India, and including Lokmat, Lok Satta, every big paper. And what they were able to do was try to convince that gutka is a food product, please regulate us, and if you're going to ban gutka, please also ban cigarette. Why are you only banning gutka? Don't be unfair to us. Okay, so those are the kind of arguments that they will do. Now, just to highlight how shameless the tobacco industry is, even during COVID, when the world was saying, please don't spit, do not smoke, it will make you more prone to COVID, these guys continue to run their factories, promote the sale of tobacco illegally. And I'll give you some examples. Now, for example, vaping is banned in India, but vapor groups were funded by Philip Morris in India to say that vaping is safer than smoking. So those kind of narratives were also created that try to sell electronic cigarettes. Even when electronic cigarettes are banned in India, they said, please start seeing ways in which you can sell nicotine products like vape groups and electronic cigarette associations were trying to promote this in India. They also reached out to school children to say how good we are in terms of cigarette, compared to cigarettes, e-cigarettes are better. They used youth champions to sell tobacco, or the same tobacco companies that were making electronic cigarettes were reaching Indian children. And these are very prominent schools in India and Bombay and Pune that were trying to take part in these competitions to say how good electronic cigarettes are. Now, ITC, for example, was distributing masks. Okay, they would distribute masks for 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs, but they would put it in newspapers and their websites and get crores of rupees worth of media, free media. And of course, access to policymakers, saying that we are such good people, we are doing all this good work, giving masks where somebody had no mask, those kind of things, right? And they came up, ITC's 12 ways to fight COVID pandemic. Now, if the first thing ITC should have said, we have stopped production of tobacco and especially cigarettes. instead of saying we are distributing masks and we are making sanitizer and all that, that is all nonsense. Okay. And their bottom line is making cigarettes while you are at home. Please continue smoking. We want to continue making profits. Now, they also distributed ITC boxes of hope with ITC logo on it, and they participated with Art of Living and many other charities. You remember Akshay Patra, where Dharampal Satyapal was partnering, and just now it is Art of Living, which is another religious group. And they started all these campaigns to children. They started reaching out to schools. They wanted to show these advertisements. When the Zoom classes, online classes were happening, these are the advertisements many schools were also playing. Okay. They also started all these products and started to say, these are our, things that we are promoting. ITC was saying that to build skill training and marginalized youth, we are also doing skill development. But they're also selling tobacco, directly and indirectly. They're saying we are also selling you tobacco. They also reached out to the medical community. Now, Dr. Randeep Guleria, as you know, is a very, very good doctor, very committed doctor. They used his name without his consent, and the person on the right is the person who actually was, coordinating such calls and, trying to say, how ITC, which owns this brand called Savalon, that how it is going to, do such good work in lung health, in respiratory medicine and all those kind of things. And they put the chief guest as Dr. Randeep Guleria, who clearly said that I have not given my consent to be used in this. Now, also note, they have got other doctors in this. They've got the Secretary General of ASSOCHAM, which supports all this, that if ITC is in the business of killing people with lung cancer and other cancers, then this is also fine. So we, my colleagues, Amit Yadav and myself and Dr. Shivam also, we all came up with this, we made a line list of things in which we found that the tobacco industry, even during the time of COVID, was engaging with the government and trying to push the fact that the government should open up the restrictions that are there for the tobacco industry to sell their products and buy things in terms of legislative changes that it wanted. So let us look at what the industry has been doing. It has been lobbying. It says that we will self-regulate. We will, anything that is restricting its efforts to reach out to policymakers, to law enforcers, it says that we will behave ourselves. Now, the point that I'm making here is there is something called Article 5.3, which says that no government official should engage with the tobacco industry because they will continue to influence you and tell you to reduce implementation of the law and do anything in interest of public health and tobacco control. Now, Government of India has adopted a policy, but it has not implemented it in earnest. But tobacco industry is working day and night to make sure that the government remains susceptible and vulnerable to their manipulation. Now, they always say that we want to partner with the government, but we know that you cannot partner with a dirty, toxic industry whose only intention is to kill people in India and take the profits abroad. And they are people who have been deceiving the country for about 100 years. But this deception is now becoming more and more apparent to people across the country, to all the people of India. I think it is time that we start looking at an end game for tobacco, because tobacco has not helped any family, any society, any community, except for the pockets of a few politicians and all the shareholders of these tobacco companies, right? Now, they can claim to be stakeholders in everything regarding development, but we know that there is no place for tobacco industry in the debate on whether it's on public health or development. We should not accept any funding from tobacco company. And we should make sure that the so many people that they have employed, they now need to have alternative employment before we end the use of tobacco, we end the tobacco sector. Let's give it 10 years and end tobacco for good, right? So let's make it a promise that we will never directly or indirectly take any sponsorship or participate with tobacco industry. Let's try recruiting tobacco-free personnel in government and in private sector? Why do you want to pay higher insurance for a person who chews tobacco or smokes tobacco in your office? Why should you have the risk of somebody smoking in your office increase the risk of fire? You remember what happened in Kamla Mills 7-8 years ago. There was a massive fire in Parel, which caused the death of 24 people. Those are the deaths that never get reported as tobacco-related deaths. But the fact is, tobacco is a major cause of disease and death because of fire. So in case of educational institutions, let's make sure that our teachers, staff do not use tobacco during school time. There should be no tobacco shops within 100 yards. And we should have a Lakshman Rekha, which prevents the sale of tobacco industry, tobacco sale within the 100 yards. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Tata Memorial Hospital and Nehru Science Center. I'm available for any questions that you may have. And I look forward to an engaging presentation by Dr. Rakesh Gupta. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Pranay Lal sir, for an excellent presentation. It was really an eye-opener on the various tactics used by the tobacco industry for the manipulations. So thank you so much, sir. And if you all have questions, you all can please put them in the chat box and sir shall reply over the same since we are running out of time. So now with this, I invite our next speaker, a very esteemed speaker, is Dr. Rakesh Gupta. He is president of Rajasthan Cancer Foundation. He also works as honorary consultant in Santokha Durlabji Memorial Hospital Institute at Jaipur, Rajasthan. And he is a former associate professor in Tata Memorial Hospital. And he has been working over a decade, more than a decade, in tobacco cessation as an advocate, master trainer, and researcher. So I invite sir to speak on the topic of tobacco cessation. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Parishi, for a very generous introduction. I think I can share the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is my screen seen?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So just make it full screen.
Yeah, I have made it full screen.
Done. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll keep it simple and I will be brief also. Initially I saw in the audience there was heterogeneity from young children to very esteemed senior people. So I'll try and keep it simple and short for that reason. Tobacco cessation, तंबाकू व्यसन का उपचार जो है वो एक बहुत अहम कड़ी है तंबाकू नियंत्रण में, ये हमें समझना होगा. मैं बस एक जानना चाहता हूं और आप चैट में मुझे बता सकें तो ये बता दीजिएगा कि क्या मेरा हिंदी बोलना लोगों को पसंद आएगा, वो समझ में भी आएगा, क्योंकि अभी तक मेरे कलीग्स ने अच्छे से इंग्लिश में बोला है और मैं सोचता हूँ हिंदी शायद ज्यादा लोगों को समझ में आती है, मुझे भी बोलने में आसानी रहती है. Can anybody respond? Okay, good. So आप देखें WHO का जो पोस्टर है, I mean poisoning our planet is the main message for the tobacco, which has been exposed now more in details because throughout its life cycle, tobacco pollutes the planets and damages the health of people. हिंदी में कहें तो मारक तंबाकू से प्रकृति का सत्यानाश हो जाता है और पृथ्वी की रक्षा के लिए हमें तंबाकू से सुरक्षा की जरूरत है. जैसा प्रणय जी ने कहा, एंड गेम टोबैको का आना ही चाहिए. जितना जल्दी आए, हम लोग जो है वो यही प्रयासरत हैं कि हमारी अगली पीढ़ी जो है वो तंबाकू नियंत्रण के लिए काम नहीं करे. ये एक आवश्यक बात है. और दूसरा संदेश मैं देना चाहता हूं कि तंबाकू मुक्त होने में ही जीवन का कल्याण है. तो अगर आप किसी तंबाकू भोगी को देखें, अपने आसपास देखें, समाज में देखें, तो उसे टोबैको छुड़वाने के लिए जुट जाएं, अच्छे से काम करें. ये WHO का वेबसाइट का पार्ट है और उसमें जो एक अहम मुद्दा लिखा है कि हमें प्लेनेट को बचाने के लिए टोबैको को छोड़ना भी जरूरी है, बिकॉज छोड़ने से प्रकृति का विनाश रुकता है, स्वास्थ्य ठीक रहता है, जहरीली गैसों से पर्यावरण दूषित नहीं होता है. So it's very important that people quit tobacco to save the health of their own and also save the planet. Now, why quit tobacco? This is always a question, because अगर हम अपना जो नेशनल सर्वे है GATS 2 करके है, ग्लोबल एडल्ट टोबैको सर्वे 2, उसके हिसाब से देखेंगे तो आंकड़े ये बताते हैं कि करीब 20% तंबाकू उपभोगी ही इसे छोड़ना चाहते हैं. और उसका एक सबसे बड़ा कारण जो है वो एडिक्टिव टोबैको में निकोटीन है. और ये निकोटीन का नशा जो है वो हीरोइन और कोकेन से भी ज्यादा गंभीर है और मजबूत है और जल्दी लगता है, छूटता नहीं. और सब लोगों को इसके नुकसानों के बारे में पता है. डॉक्टर सुबिता ने भी बताया है किस तरह से जो रोग हैं, डेथ्स हैं, प्रोडक्टिविटी लॉस है. उसके साथ हर वर्ष भारत में करीब 15 लाख वयस्क भारतीय तंबाकू जनित रोगों से मर जाते हैं, करीब 4000. और ये सरकारी आंकड़े से थोड़ा ऊपर नंबर है, क्योंकि सरकार का आंकड़ा जो है वो पिछले 4-5 साल पुराना है. तो मैं सोचता हूँ उसको हमें अपनी बढ़ती हुई जनसंख्या और उसमें जो तंबाकू उपभोगियों का नंबर बढ़ रहा है उसके हिसाब से देखें तो हमें निश्चित रूप से लगेगा कि तंबाकू से होने वाली मृत्युओं की संख्या भी ज्यादा ही हो रही है. और जो लोग जीवन भर तंबाकू खाते पीते हैं उनमें करीब 6 से 8 साल उनका जीवन कम हो जाता है. इकोनॉमिक लॉसेस तो है ही, आप तंबाकू पर खर्च करते हैं, आप इसकी बीमारियों से जो जूझने के लिए और जूझने के लिए खर्च वापस करते हैं, और फिर प्रीमेच्योर लॉस ऑफ लाइफ है तो प्रोडक्टिविटी का भी लॉस. सो मेरा ये कहना है कि ये जो है वो सब नेगेटिव मोटिवेशन है, और हम क्या इसमें जो है वो पॉजिटिव मोटिवेशन ढूंढ सकते हैं क्विटिंग ऑफ टोबैको में. तो पॉजिटिव मोटिवेशन क्या हो सकता है? पॉजिटिव मोटिवेशन सबसे बड़ा ये है कि तंबाकू छोड़ने के फायदे ही फायदे हैं हर तरह से. स्वास्थ्य अच्छा होता है, पैसा बचता है, जीवन लंबा रहता है, परिवार खुश रहता है, एंड क्विटिंग बेनिफिट्स रिगार्डलेस ऑफ द एज, जेंडर, रेस एंड ज्योग्राफी. जो लोग जल्दी क्विट करते हैं वो ज्यादा फायदा महसूस करते हैं, क्योंकि उनके रिस्क फैक्टर्स डेवलप नहीं होते हैं और एलिमिनेट जल्दी से हो जाते हैं. सो अर्लियर द बेटर is the right message, and the best bet of course is always to say no to tobacco. Anybody who is offering it to you, who is encouraging it to you, or you are getting at the sense of adventure into it, say no. This is something which you cannot afford to enjoy. Long disease free life adding eventually to the soft power of India. I think हम सबको इस बारे में सोचना चाहिए कि अगर हमको भारत को अगली कुछ दशकों में एक लीडरशिप का रोल देना है वर्ल्ड में, वी नीड टू बी टोबैको फ्री. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. देयर हैज टू बी टाइमलाइन. प्रणय जी और हम इस बारे में बात करते रहे हैं. हमारा सोच है कि भारत 2030 तक तंबाकू मुक्त हो जाना चाहिए. एंड गेम का मतलब यही. कैसे छोड़ें तंबाकू? ये बहुत आसान है. अगर आप चाहें तो अब तो बहुत सुविधाएं जो है वो भारत में बढ़ गई हैं. आप हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में टोबैको सिजेशन क्लिनिक के तक पहुंच सकते हैं. आप गूगल पे सर्च करें TCC नियर मी एंड परहैप्स यू विल गेट एन एड्रेस. अगर आपको ऐसा नहीं मिलता है तो हमारे पास भारत सरकार ने 2 जो है वो निःशुल्क सेवाएं उपलब्ध करा रखी हैं. एक है नेशनल टोबैको क्विटलाइन सर्विस, टाटा मेमोरियल हॉस्पिटल में भी एस्टेब्लिश्ड है, दिल्ली में भी है, आसाम में भी है, बेंगलोर में भी है. उस तरह से भारत पूरा कवर हो जाता है. उनका टोल फ्री नंबर है, ये ध्यान रखें, 1-800-11-2356 टोल फ्री नंबर है. आप इसको सवेरे 7 बजे से रात की 9 बजे तक काम में ले सकते हैं. काउंसलर्स उपलब्ध हैं आपको तंबाकू छुड़वाने के लिए, काउंसलिंग देने के लिए. और अगर दूसरा प्रोग्राम, अगर आप काउंसलिंग नहीं लेना चाहते हैं तो आप जो है वो टेलीफोनिकली जो SMS आते हैं, डिजिटाइज सर्विस है, वो 01122901701 इस पर उपलब्ध है. इस पे आपको रजिस्टर करना होगा और फिर आप तंबाकू छोड़ने के लिए आपको निरंतर रूप से संदेश मिलते रहेंगे जो आपके तंबाकू छोड़ने को समर्थित करेंगे स्टेज बाय स्टेज, और उससे आपको काफी लाभ मिलेगा. दोनों ही सुविधाएं जो हैं वो करीब 30% से ज्यादा आपको सफलता देती है शुरुआत में, और ये सफलता जितना आप रखना चाहेंगे वो बढ़ती जाएंगी. कैसे बढ़ेंगे ये देखिए. जो प्रोसेस ऑफ क्विटिंग है उसमें दो बातें जरूरी, इट इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ काउंसलिंग एंड फार्माकोथेरेपी। लोग कई बार ये सोचते हैं कि आदत है, अपनी मर्जी से छोड़ देंगे, परामर्श लेने की क्या जरूरत है, और दवाइयां तो बिल्कुल ही लेना नहीं चाहते हैं। उनको लगता है आदत के लिए दवाई क्या लेनी है, बट रोगी हैं तो उपचार पूरा लेना ही होगा। इफ यू डोंट कंप्लाई यू विल नॉट गेट सक्सेसफुली ट्रीटेड, बिकॉज निकोटिन एडिक्शन इज वेरी पावरफुल एंड स्ट्रॉन्ग एडिक्शन। इट इज ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट कि प्राइमरी इंटरवेंशन के बाद हम जो है वो एक फॉलोअप को भी फॉलो करें। रोग है तो जैसा डॉक्टर अन्य रोगों में कहते हैं कि भाई आके वापस दिखाना, अगर आप नहीं दिखाएंगे तो आपको निश्चित रूप से उतनी अपेक्षित सफलता, एक्सपेक्टेड सक्सेस नहीं मिलेगी। और ये जो फॉलोअप है ये फिजिकल भी किया जा सकता है, ये टेलीफोनिक भी किया जा सकता है। मैं अपने मरीजों में ये प्राइमरी काउंसलिंग के बाद 3rd और 7th डे पे करता हूँ, फिर 1st मंथ, 3rd मंथ, 6th मंथ एंड 12th मंथ पे करता हूँ। मैं सोचता हूँ कि एक आइडियल वे में अगर हम देखें तो ये बहुत अच्छा है, परंतु अगर इतना नहीं हो सके तो कम से कम 6 महीने तक अगर आप फॉलोअप करते हैं, 4 फॉलोअप कॉल्स कर लेते हैं, तो आपके तंबाकू छोड़ने की सफलता काफी ज्यादा बढ़ जाती है। काउंसलिंग में होता क्या है, चिंता करना नहीं चाहिए, क्योंकि आपको जानकारियां देनी है खुले मन से और अपने छोड़ने की दिनांक पर कायम रहना है। स्टेइंग विद द क्विट डेट इज मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट। जैसे आप अपना आधार कार्ड का नंबर नहीं बदल सकते हैं, अपना बर्थडे नहीं बदल सकते हैं, मैरिज एनिवर्सरी नहीं बदल सकते हैं, उसी तरह से आपको क्विट डेट को नहीं बदलना। ये सबसे जरूरी बात है। और उसके साथ बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है तंबाकू मुक्त होना और उस पर बने रहना। हमारा जो एनवायरनमेंट है चारों तरफ का, वो टोबैको फ्री हो जाना चाहिए। मतलब कुछ जो है वो डिक्टाट्स हैं, तंबाकू खरीदूंगा नहीं, कोई मांगेगा तो मना कर दूंगा, किसी से मंगवाऊंगा नहीं, और अपने घर में, गाड़ी में, ऑफिस में रखूंगा नहीं, और तंबाकू के धुएं में कभी भी नहीं रहूंगा। आपको ये काम अगर आप कर लेते हैं तो आप अपना एनवायरनमेंट टोबैको फ्री कर सकते हैं। ये आपके ऊपर है कि आप जो है वो टोबैको यूजर से दूर हो जाएं, उनको डिक्लेयर कर दें कि मैंने टोबैको खाना पीना छोड़ दिया है। उसमें जो आपके दोस्त हैं, आपको अगर वो मदद कर रहे हैं तो वास्तव में आपके फ्रेंड्स हैं, और जो नहीं कर रहे हैं उनसे तो निश्चित रूप से आपको संपर्क भी नहीं रखना चाहिए। एक सबसे बड़ी टोबैको छोड़ने की समस्या जो है वो हम विड्रॉल सिम्टम्स कैसे मैनेज करें, प्रतिकार लक्षण कहते हैं इनको हिंदी में, इनका प्रबंध कैसे हो, ये बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है, क्योंकि ये अधिकतर लोगों में कुछ समय के लिए ही होते हैं, महीने भर से कम होते हैं। हर व्यक्ति में सारे लक्षण नहीं होते हैं, जैसे क्रेविंग है, रेस्टलेसनेस है, हेडेक है, नींद नहीं आना है, भूख ज्यादा लगना है, कॉन्स्टिपेशन हो जाना है। इन सब के जो अगर हैं लक्षण भी, तो आपका इलाज जो है वो बहुत आसान लेना है। साधारण दवाओं से इलाज हो जाता है, खर्चा नहीं होता है, तकलीफ नहीं होगी अगर आप जो है वो बराबर काउंसलिंग के साथ मेडिसिन का उपयोग करेंगे। और इसके साथ एक सबसे जरूरी बात है कि अब आप तंबाकू नहीं खाएंगे पिएंगे, रिलैप्स नहीं होना चाहिए, उससे बचना जरूरी है। वापस आपको तंबाकू खाने पीने की तरफ जो चीजें ले जाती है, जो रिस्की सिचुएशंस हैं, वो हैं जिसमें कि व्यक्ति बहुत ज्यादा खुश हो, कभी पार्टी है, शादी ब्याह है, त्योहार है, कोई पुराना दोस्त मिल गया जो जिसके साथ आप टोबैको यूज करते थे, या आप स्ट्रेस में हैं, आपको जो है वो डिमोशन हो गया है, प्रमोशन नहीं मिल रहा है, परिवार में किसी की मृत्यु हो गई है, ब्रेकअप हो गया है, ये सब सिचुएशंस हैं जब व्यक्ति जो है वो रिलैप्स कर जाता है, टोबैको खाने पीने लगता है। उनको आपको याद रखना है, आइडेंटिफाई करना है और उससे जो है वो बचे रहना। मेडिसिन्स बहुत आसान है। डॉक्टर्स को मैं यही कहता हूं कि आधे घंटे में आप मुझसे टोबैको ट्रीटमेंट का इलाज सीख सकते हैं। अहम जो दवा है एनआरटी, निकोटिन रिप्लेसमेंट थेरेपी, ओवर द काउंटर ड्रग्स हैं, च्युइंगम के रूप में मिलती हैं, लॉजेंजेस के रूप में मिलती हैं, और पैच भी होता है स्किन का। वो हम नहीं देते अधिकांश लोगों को क्योंकि महंगा है, और पर जरूरत है अगर आप निकोटिन के बिना नहीं रह सकते हैं, 24 घंटे के लिए आपको पैच लगाना है। बहुत अच्छी बात है अगर आप लगा सकें, उसके अपने कुछ जो हैं वो प्रिकॉशंस हैं, उसका ध्यान रखना होता है। 2 ही ड्रग्स हैं जिसके लिए पर आपको डॉक्टर के पर्चे की जरूरत है, और उसके जो हैं वो दोनों के अपने कुछ कॉशंस होते हैं, परंतु ये जो दवाइयां हैं ये सुरक्षित हैं, वेल टॉलरेटेड हैं, और इनको 8 से 12 हफ्ते, मतलब 2 से 3 महीने ही आपको काम में लेना है। अधिकांश लोग महीने भर बाद ही सोचते हैं कि अब मुझे जरूरत नहीं है, परंतु मैं सोचता हूँ कि अगर कोई भी इलाज है उसको प्रेस्क्राइब्ड वे में लिया जाए तो ज्यादा ठीक है। एक जो जरूरी बात है, और मैं सोचता हूं तंबाकू मुक्त वातावरण में रहने के लिए, बराबर एनकरेज रहने के लिए, इंस्पायर होने के लिए, और इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि आप अपना जो डिसीजन है वो शेयर करें और डेट ऑफ क्विटिंग को बताएं लोगों को, अपने परिवार वालों को, अपने दोस्तों को, अपने सहकर्मियों को, एंड चूज हु शैल बी सपोर्टिव एंड पॉजिटिव. Do not choose people who are negative, who are going to give you more stress, who are going to harass you, that you can't keep to the commitment. I think that is not right. It is very important कि जो आपके सहकर्मी हैं, परिवार वाले हैं, वो आपके सहायक हों, सकारात्मक हो, और जरूरत हो तो वो उपलब्ध भी हों. टेलीफोन कॉल ही तो करना है. अधिकांश लोगों के पास टेलीफोन है, आप वीडियो कॉल कर सकते हैं, अपने आप को डिस्ट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं. सो क्विटिंग इज पॉसिबल. ये सबसे बड़ी बात है कि ये जानना है कि टोबैको यूज इज ए डिजीज, और हम जैसे किसी भी बीमार व्यक्ति को अस्पताल ले जाते हैं, उसका ध्यान रखते हैं, तो परिवार में कोई तंबाकू खा पी रहा है तो निश्चित रूप से उस रोगी को आप अस्पताल ले जाएं. अस्पताल में जहाँ टोबैको सिजेशन क्लिनिक है, जैसा टाटा हॉस्पिटल में है, मैं सोचता हूँ मुंबई के और दूसरे अस्पतालों में भी होंगी. तो नहीं कर सकते हैं तो उनको क्विट लाइन पर संपर्क कराएं या एम सिजेशन प्रोग्राम में जोड़ें. उनके लिए कमिटिंग टू क्विट, बिकमिंग रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द सेल्फ इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड स्टेइंग कॉन्फिडेंट, ये चीज बहुत जरूरी है. और स्टेइंग कॉन्फिडेंट का एक जो है वो स्केल काम में ले सकते हैं कि रुपए में 100 पैसे हैं तो आप कितना कमिटेड है. और कमिटेड होने के लिए आपको रीजनिंग करना होगा कि मैं तंबाकू छोड़ क्यों रहा हूं. अगर वो आपके मन में जो है वो स्पष्टता से है कि मैं तंबाकू इसलिए छोड़ रहा हूं कि मैं जो है वो बीमार नहीं पड़ना चाहता हूं, मैं समय से पहले इस दुनिया से नहीं जाना चाहता हूं, मैं अपने परिवार वालों से प्यार करता हूं, मैं उनके प्रति जिम्मेदार हूं, तो आप जो है वो कमिटमेंट टू क्विट आप बढ़ जाएगा. टू सक्सीड यू डू नॉट लीव योर डिसीजन टू क्विट. जो आपका डिसीजन है तंबाकू छोड़ने का, उसको ना छोड़ें. पर कई बार लोगों को एक से ज्यादा अटेम्प्ट करना पड़ता है, स्वाभाविक है, उसमें हैरेस नहीं होना चाहिए. कई बार लोग 3-4 अटेम्प्ट्स के बाद छोड़ पाते हैं. आप जब भी छोड़ें और आप कभी स्लिप कर जाएं, मतलब आपने एक आध बार खा लिया एंड यू अगेन सॉर्ट ऑफ फील कि अब जो है वो मैं नहीं खाऊंगा, तो उसको तत्काल छोड़ दें. यू अगेन बिकम टोबैको फ्री. दैट इज मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड देन स्टे विद दैट डेट. It is very, very important to stay with the quit date. That I think is the key to quitting tobacco. Along with the fact कि जिन लोगों के साथ आप तंबाकू खाते हैं, जहां जहां आप तंबाकू खाने के लिए जाते हैं, दिन में जिस जिस समय पर आप तंबाकू खाते हैं, आप उस थॉट से डिस्ट्रैक्ट करना सीख लें. ये एक बिहेवियरल इशू है, ये एक मेंटल प्रोसेस है. हमारा दिमाग ही जो है वो सब कारस्तानियां भी करता है, और हमारा दिमाग ही जो है वो हमें मजबूत बनाता है, सही निर्णय के लिए लेने को तैयार होता है. तो उस दिमाग को जो है वो सही तरीके से काम में लें, ये जरूरी बात है. सो टू सम अप, आई थिंक जो है वो आपका डिसीजन स्ट्रांग होना चाहिए. जैसा मैंने कहा, स्टेइंग विद द क्विट डेट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. गेट द राइट ट्रीटमेंट एंड स्टे विद फॉलो अप. डोंट गेट डिसअपॉइंटेड इफ यू फेल इन द फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट. आई हैव सेड ऑल दिस अर्लियर. आई विल जस्ट फिनिश बाय सेइंग दैट कि नॉन यूजर्स का बहुत बड़ा रोल है. जो तंबाकू नहीं खाते पीते हैं, they should support users to quit tobacco, to quit as soon as possible. They are the patients, they are not criminals. And I think this is a message that I want to give on this World No Tobacco Day. To save our planet, we need to be tobacco free. We need to participate in the end game. We need to have the timeline of year 2030 when India becomes tobacco free. My hearty best wishes to you all, and I expect you all to participate. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very beautiful, simple explanation of how people can help themselves to quit from the tobacco habits. And we really appreciate your taking away, your sparing your valuable time. We know you have a very busy schedule, but thanks for participating. We really appreciate. Thank you so much, sir.
Very welcome.
So with
if
this,
there are any questions?
If there are, I don't think there are any questions.
Yeah, people must be tired of listening to all of us, you know. They should be
Not
talking.
really, sir. Actually, we have been getting comments that they have really appreciated the lectures. But there are no questions as of now.
Never mind.
So with this, thank you once again, sir.
Thank you.
And we come to an end of today's program. So participants, we have shared the link with you all. So kindly fill in all your information related, whatever has been asked, so that certificates can be given to you all accordingly. And with this, we come to today's end of the program. And on behalf of Department of Preventive Oncology, Tata Memorial Hospital, Dr. Subita Patil and myself, we really sincerely appreciate the team from Nehru Science Center, especially, of course, the director who has been a strong motivating force, and Mr. Umesh Kumar Rastogi and Mrs. Manjula Yadav Madam, that and the program has been successful because of their rigorous efforts. And I wish to invite Mr. Umesh Kumar sir to give in the vote of thanks. And before that, before sir comes in, I would also like to say that we have been, as I had announced initially, that Nehru Science Center and Tata Hospital has been conducting different competitions, and we have had a good response. And considering that the date has been extended till 30th June, so whoever is interested can still participate. So Umesh Kumar sir, coming for the vote of thanks.
Okay, I'll just complete this formality. I know, as Dr. Gupta has told, it's already, I think, 1.5 hours. So they must be tiring. But it was really a wonderful series of lecture, I should say, 4 of them. They have put up their point very nicely, starting with Dr. Subita Patil, who put all tobacco use and facts and figures along with us, and how many deaths we have been facing. Then Dr. Shivam Kapoor has nicely placed also on environmental impact, which is the main theme for this, and showing this wonderfully connecting that lung and trees and life cycle of the tobacco, how it is dangerous throughout its life. Means there is no use at all, only the bad impacts are there on that. And then Mr. Parnelal, he has put up in very, very strong words many things, and put up, I think, many slides which have been communicating so well that what these means, the money which is going, where it's going. In fact, one question comes to my mind that today also, it is still affordable to many of the, if you see the today's times of India, it is said, many people are still say, despite increasing the rates like anything, it is affordable money for many of them, so they are taking it. But I don't know whether this really is a good decision to improve, because more you are putting the money out there, I don't know whether it's really deterring them to use, or we are making more, big companies richer by increasing the value of that. So perhaps it may be idea that you make it this very less in, so nobody will bother about that. So costly it is, then more money is going in their pocket. In fact, that G23, it has become, tobacco industry has become G23 group, because it's somewhere after 21 countries GDP. And then thank you to Dr. Rakesh Gupta as well, very nice and simple words, making Hindi and English combination. और जो बताया है कि कैसे इसको छोड़ सकते हैं, ये इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. हाँ, थोड़ा सा दिक्कत होता है, जैसा उनको सिम्टम्स हैं उनको फेस करने के लिए, बट इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. हमारे साथ ऐसे बहुत सारे साथी हैं जिन्होंने छोड़ा है और परमानेंटली छोड़ा. दोबारा उन्होंने जैसा कहा कि ये खाली आपकी विल पावर है, आपकी शक्ति, ऐसी इच्छा शक्ति, आप कर सकते हैं कोई इसमें. और इतने सारे साधन उपलब्ध हैं, उन्होंने बताया है, टोल फ्री नंबर्स वगैरह सभी आपको दिए हैं. तो मेरा ख्याल है इतना मुश्किल में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ. नेहरू साइंस सेंटर की तरफ से भी, हमारी जो पेरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है नेशनल काउंसिल ऑफ साइंस म्यूजियम, जो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कल्चर के अंदर में आती है, और टाटा मेमोरियल हॉस्पिटल के, और पारिश जी आपका भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, क्योंकि आप अपना धन्यवाद खुद नहीं कर पाएंगे, तो मैं आपका भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ कि आप सब ने बहुत मेहनत की है. ये प्रोग्राम अभी चल रहे हैं, हमने शेयर किए हैं, जो कॉम्पिटिशन्स हैं उनके रिजल्ट्स बाद में आएंगे, अभी भी आप उसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हैं. तो और फीडबैक जैसा बताया है, आप लोगों को एक लिंक दिया है, आप उसमें प्रोग्राम की फीडबैक भी दे सकते हैं। और अभी भी अगर आपका कोई ऐसा बाद में क्वेश्चन आता है तो आप हमें शेयर कीजिए, हम लोग टीएमएच के साथ शेयर करेंगे। पर अपने ईमेल आईडी अगर देंगे, we'll request all our speakers, distinguished speakers, they can write back to you because together perhaps we can achieve this. लड़ाई शायद बहुत लंबी है, जैसा कि शिवम लाल जी ने, प्रेरणा लाल जी ने बताया, बहुत बड़े लोगों के साथ कंपटीशन है, लंबी चलेगी लड़ाई, पर जीत मेरे ख्याल है जैसा कहते हैं हमारी होगी, छोड़ने वालों की, और इसका एंड बहुत जल्दी शायद हम देख पाए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी, शुक्रिया।
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.